So, Assalamu alaikum and good evening to people in Bangladesh and greetings of the day to the people around the world. So, you are watching this event live. You are watching this event, A Bit of Excel, live from the Facebook page Mohammad Menazuddin Rupam. So this is the opening event of this session, and it's an honor to have Miss Celia Alves with us to open the session with her amazing power query that she will talk about in detail for sure. I will introduce her and bring her to the scene very shortly. But prior to this, let me talk about why this A Bit of Excel event is been organized and what you will have today. And I will introduce and tell very briefly about Miss Celia Alves. And later on, I will hand over to her to conduct this amazing session today. So, yeah, Bit of Excel is an initiative to disseminate the learning of Excel to people around the world for free so that they get to know what has Excel to offer to people to enhance their productivity, to integrate the tools and the functions available in Excel to enhance their productivity and save working hours and uh, bring a real business result, right? So today we will learn about such a tool that is available in Excel named Power Query, which is really very powerful and it can automate things and save lots of hours. So I will not tell in detail about this. We have someone very, very special, and I call her Power Query Queen because she has some amazing grip over a Power Query. So she is none other than Miss Celia Alves, and she is an Microsoft MVP and MOS expert, Microsoft trainer, and business solution developer. So she has been serving the Excel community and the people around the world with her Excel expertise from years. And I'm really happy to introduce her to you. Let me bring her to the scene. Hi, Celia.
Hello, Rupam. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Yeah, you are clearly audible and visible. And I hope you can hear me as well.
Yes.
So, how are you?
Everything is okay. Thank you. I'm here in Canada. We are starting summer, so weather is nice and everything is okay. And thanks God, everyone is healthy. So, yes, all is good.
Okay, nice to know. Okay, great, great to know. We are also having the summer season here. It's a bit of rain. Last day, today, we did not have rain or overcast situation because today you will be shining, right? So that's why probably.
Thank you. Good to
Okay,
know that everything is
but the
okay
COVID
there too.
situation, yeah, but the COVID situation is not that good. The numbers of infected cases are increasing. We have government restrictions and lockdowns in place throughout the country to get everything in place so that minimum people get affected and less is a bless for Bangladesh because we have a higher people density compared to other parts of the world. So yeah, that's it from our side. Let's hope for the best. And it's really amazing, Celia, to have you with us to conduct a session on Power Query. So I will not talk too much. I will talk less, and I will hand over to you to conduct the session. You can start by introducing you in detail. I am sure people around the world know you very well. So it's over to you, Celia.
Okay, so I probably would share my screen because I had done that before, but then I lost you there. So I'm sharing again, and I have a presentation there, and we will go from there. So you should be looking at my PowerPoint now.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, let's put it like that. And let's go like that. Okay, so thank you, Rupam, for this invitation. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be the first guest of your series. And I'm always happy to talk about Power Query, to talk about Excel, but within Excel, Power Query is really my favorite tool. And I think people that get to know Power Query and get to start using it, it's not difficult to learn. It's not difficult to start using it. And once you start, it's a no way back journey. So once you start using it, it kind of gets addictive. Let me put my next slide here. So my name, my company is Solvent Excel Consulting. I work as an Excel business solutions developer, meaning that it seems that you are not sharing my screen. Rupam, are you? Oh, you are. Sorry about that. Yes, you are. So I work with I work as an Excel business solutions developer, meaning that my clients are companies in various industries, and I create for them solutions in Excel to help them save time, automate tasks, building models, things like that. And to do that, I may put together different pieces, some Microsoft Excel functions, features in there, and then maybe I can use VBA programming and Power Query and Power Pivot, depending on what the problem is that needs to be solved. A little bit about myself. My background is in mathematics and education. I worked as a high school mathematics teacher back in Portugal when where I was raised. So for 20 years, I worked as a mathematics high school teacher, and then I moved to Canada in 2013. And sometime after, Microsoft Excel came into my life, my professional life. I was already using Microsoft Excel since I started to be a teacher, since my first year as a teacher, but not at a very deep level. And then here I was introduced to what what the Excel could do in terms of automation. I started learning VBA and learning more about the functions and how to put everything together. And I did that type of work of automation for 2 companies that I worked for. In both companies, after I automated pretty much everything that was there to be automated with Excel, I left because I discovered that doing that was what I really like to do. So I was not interested in any other business they were doing. One company was a bookkeeper's company. The other one was a company that was working with selling and renting containers, shipping containers. So I was not interested in sales, in learning bookkeeping, any of that. I discovered that what I like to do is automation in Excel. So I created my own consulting company, and now that's what I do. I offer that type of service for my clients. Recently, I went back to my roots as a teacher with my YouTube channel, and I have been delivering classes there almost weekly. Almost every week there is a long class live that people can join, and people can have access to the files later through a Telegram channel. And then there are other shorter videos, like tutorial videos, that are extracted from those classes. I also founded the MS Excel Toronto Meetup Group, which is a community here in Toronto. We started by meeting in person back in 2019. And after the pandemic started, we moved the sessions online. So now everyone in the world, anyone in the world, as long as they have an internet connection, are free to join the meetup and join the sessions. And so I will give you the link later for any of the participants who are interested in joining. We have presenters there each session. So usually it's not me presenting. Each session we have a guest speaker, anyone, multiple experts in Excel and related technologies around the world that come to present on a different topic every session. And in 2020, so a year ago almost, I was awarded the MVP award by Microsoft. So today's topic will be Power Query, the tool that can save you hours of work in Excel. So we will take talk a little bit about what Power Query is, and then we will go and see one example. This example will show us a few different features that we have, tools inside Power Query that you can use. So my purpose today is to demonstrate a little bit of what Power Query can do, so that people who may be new to this tool get a seed in their heads and minds and go and look for more and start learning. So it won't be possible to teach you everything today. So in Microsoft's in one of the Microsoft pages in docs.microsoft.com, we read this sentence: business users spend up to 80% of their time on data preparation, which delays the work of analysis and decision making. Several changes contribute to this situation, and Power Query helps address many of them. So when we need to analyze data, before we can really do that, we need to have our data prepared, set up on a proper layout to facilitate that task. And the work of doing that, if you do that manually, it can be just time consuming, boring. It can generate errors because it's such a repetitive task. And Power Query gives us the ability to prepare that work, to prepare that transformation of data and importation of data that we need to repeat every now and then, do that once, and then after everything is set up properly, we just need to click a button and say refresh data, and everything will be updated with new data the next time. So what is this Power Query? Power Query, it's also named, or was not initially it was Power Query, then at some point Microsoft named it Get and Transform Data, but it didn't really stick with the users, so everyone keeps calling it Power Query, and Microsoft went back to the Power Query designation. It's what it's called an ETL tool, meaning it's a tool that allows us to extract data from the sources, transform that data the way we need it to be, and then load it into Excel or Power Query or even other Microsoft tools. I will give you links where you can find more information about that, but I will be using Power Query in Excel. So it's a data connectivity and preparation technology. It requires no code, so it offers a no-code user experience, meaning that we only need to click the buttons available in the ribbon and Power Query editor, and behind the scenes, Power Query is in fact recording our actions using an M language, a programming language called M. We don't need to learn M to be able to do very powerful things with Power Query, but at some point you may get to a situation where you discover that the features that the editor makes available to you may not be enough. And at that point, you may want to start learning a little bit of the M code. but it's not required to start at all. So let's look at one example. This is our scenario today. We are going to connect to one folder with Excel files. In that folder, every month, let's suppose we receive a file with sales quantities. You will see that these files are very small for the purpose of this demonstration, but this can work with thousands and even millions of rows. Power Query can handle that. We have a separate table with product prices in another file. And we will see that the data in our data source is not in tabular form. It's not in tabular layout. And as you may know, having the data prepared in columns is all that any data analyst needs, because it allows them to extract, do the calculations. If we are working in Excel, use Excel formulas, create pivot tables. So having data prepared in tabular layout is what we need. Our goal in this scenario will be to create a report with total sales amounts by sales reps. Okay. So we won't focus as much on the preparation of the report, but more in the preparation of the data. Then we can make a pivot table there if we want to. Okay, so let me escape here my presentation, and let's go to, let me quickly close here my email, and let's go to our file. So we have here sales reports. We have this folder with two files. These files are identical, and one is for January, the other is for February, as the name of the file suggests. And in fact, the name of the file will be important for our exercise today. So this is one of the files. It's January's file. Maybe I'll put this bigger. Rupam, if any questions come, let me know. And if I forget to zoom in, also let me know. Okay. So we have this file with two sets of data. And there are several problems here. One is we have empty rows in between different portions of data. Then we have one information here, so two locations for these sales, but the location is not repeated throughout the column as it would be desirable. Also, we have what we call pivoted data here. We have products across the columns and then the names of the sales representatives in this column. And what we would need to have so that we call this data to be in tabular layout is one column that says product, one column that says the person's name, and then these are the quantities sold. And so we would have another column that says quantity. So we need to move this data into a totally different layout. If we had to do this manually, it's very, it's boring, it can cause errors, and it's very time consuming. Even more if we have to deal with a large amount of data. And that's what usually happens in the real world. So this is what we are trying to accomplish, is to transform the data in this file. And not only that, not only transform the data in this file, but also transform the data in the other file, which looks similar. And then put everything together into one table only. That's our goal. And Power Query will help us do that. Okay. So going back, I have a separate file here that says product prices. In this file, it's an Excel file as well. The other files are also Excel, but they could be CSV files, for example. It's common to get CSV reports from other softwares, the accounting, the HR platforms. So you will see that we can connect to CSV files as well, but not in our example today. Today we are using Excel files. In this file here, I have a very simple table with just 3 products, the name of the product and the price. And we, again, could have a very long table. That's not the case today, so that's easier for us to understand what's going on in the example. But the procedure will be exactly the same, having 3 products or having 3,000 products. It's the same, okay? So my purpose is, as you saw on the other file, I only have quantities sold. I don't have the prices, the price information in that file. So I need to do a few things. I need to transform the way the data is presented in each one of the monthly files. I need to combine the several monthly files, and then I need to merge the information that I bring from those reports with the information that I have in this table here, so that I can calculate the total amount of each sale, and from there, then I would be able to build my report. Okay. So I'm going to start the connection to that folder where we have the files. We could do that from an external file, from a third file, not this one that I am in, but I'm going to do that here. Doing from this, the connection from this same file where we have the prices or not, it would be your choice depending on what you think it's best. In this case, if I'm maintaining the prices here, maybe I want to have the prices in this sheet and on a separate sheet build the connection. In fact, we will have the connection, we will have a new sheet. But anyways, so where is this Power Query? Power Query was initially available in Excel 2010, and from Excel 2010 as an add-in, and we would need to install that separately in Excel. That add-in is still available in the file that I will provide to you after the session. Rupam will send you the file to those of you who registered. You will have several links with information there, and if you are using Excel 2010 and 2013, you will see the page from where you can download the add-in. I would strongly recommend to have at least Excel 2016 to work with Power Query. The versions before that are not being supported by Microsoft anymore. Although it's available for download, they are not making any updates to that. From 2016 on, if you go to the data tab here, we get to see this group get and transform data. The icons may show a little bit different for you, depending on which version of Excel you are using. I'm using Excel for Microsoft 365. And in here, get data is where everything begins. From here, you can see that we can get data from files, Excel files, text or CSV files, other types of files, even PDF files, from folders, from SharePoint folders. We can get data from databases, Access databases, analysis service, from Azure. We can get data directly from Power BI. So if you already built your models and your queries in Power BI, you can import that work, the result of that work, into Excel. And so on and so on. So many, many other sources. Today we are going to connect to, so get data from file, from folder. That's what we are interested in today. Let me zoom out. So in here, let me find the file we are working, the folder we are interested in today, which is this one, sales reports here. That's the folder. We don't see the files because we are just pointing to the folder. Open. And now Power Query starts the connection you and the first thing it tells us is what's available in that folder. We see the two files we saw there before. It gives us different information about those files. We go to transform data. Usually that's the best way. Instead of combine, it's go to transform data, and a new window opens. This is Power Query Editor. Okay, going to do Control Shift plus to zoom in, gives us a little bit of zoom here. So different components here in the Power Query Editor for those of you who may have not used it before. At the top, we have the ribbon with different tabs here. We will use some of these features. On the left, we get a list of all the queries that we have. At the moment, we only have this query. And on the right, we have the name of the query we are working on, that's sales reports. The name was automatically created according to the name of the folder that I am connecting to, but we can, if we wanted, we could come here and change the name. And on the right side, we will see all the steps that we create. At the moment, I only did one thing, which was connecting to the source. And we can see that the path to that folder is being recorded here. So we have also a very important component of the Power Query Editor window, which is this formula bar here. Like I said before, it's not very urgent that you start learning the M code, but it's very important that you start getting acquainted with that language. I'm going to close this for now here so that we have a little bit more of room. So if you don't see this, you can come to View and activate the formula bar here. So you see the formula bar disappeared and now it's on again. Here it's we see the functions in M language that Power Query records for us according to our actions. Okay, so we have two files. If we click here, I get a preview of what the file is. At the moment, it's not, it's just telling me the name of the file. But if we click in this button here that says Combine Files, this will expand the information available inside those Excel files. Because I am connecting to an Excel file, I get to choose which components of that Excel file I need to import. So Power Query can recognize sheets, can recognize tables, and can recognize named ranges in the Excel files. In this file, in this case, each one of the files only has one sheet, so that's all that we see here. So I'm going to say I want to import the information from sheet 1, and we already see a preview of what's going on in that sheet 1 of one certain file, not from all the files. So if you see here at the top, when we are connecting to a folder, Power Query says, okay, since we are bringing data from multiple files, I need to learn first what to do with just one file. And then after I know that, then I'll repeat the same work with all the files. So here we say which one of the files we want Power Query to use as sample file. By default, it tells us use the first file, and we can leave it just like that, okay? Rupam, I was going to suggest if you want to mute your microphone, maybe it's helpful because we can hear the street noise, and maybe it will help with the recording. But then don't forget to unmute when it's time to speak again. Okay, so we just go and click OK here. I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so repeating, I connect it to the folder. It says, okay, tell me which file to use as an example. It says, do I want me to use first file in the folder? I say yes. So just say, oh, and I said I want to connect to to import data from sheet 1 in each file. Okay. So it takes a little bit of time. And now we will see that a couple of things will happen here. So a number of new steps were created here on the side, and including this step that says change type that Power Query creates by default. And we don't need this step. I'm going to delete it, and we will get that step back when it's a better time than now. So what's doing is going through the files and then doing a few things, and then it excludes columns with information from the files. And we get to this point and it expands the table for each one of the files and puts the two tables together. I'm going to show you this on the left, but let me first show you something else here. So, okay, we are getting all the data from the two files combined. We can see the rows from January here and from February there. There's a few things that are not good yet. For example, we see Ontario went up to as title in one of the columns, but Ontario is in fact the name of one of the locations. And then we have the other location here, Alberta. So I don't want Ontario as column header. And then we also have things to take care here. We have rows with empty null. It says null, so it's for the empty cells that we don't want. And then we see these cells here that gives us the product codes are repeated, because what Power Query did at the moment was to put one file on top of the other, the data from one file on top of the other, and it's not working yet the way we really need it to be. Okay, but we will take care of that. So if we look here on the left, we see that before we only had the sales report query, but now we have multiple queries created here. This is something that Power Query does every time we connect to a folder, and you don't really need to worry about that. On a more advanced class, I would be explaining what each one of these things does. But what you need to do if you are just starting is that you need to come to the transform sample file and work on that file, on that query separately, explaining everything that Power Query that you want Power Query to do with just one file, that sample file, which is the first file in the folder. And that's all you need to do. So we are jumping, we were here, and now we are jumping to this separate query, transform sample file. I'm going to close this to have more room here. And let's see what we can do. So Power Query to this file, what it did was it connected to the file. Don't worry about the code here, but it connected to that workbook. And then it did the navigation step that consisted in going to sheet 1, which was the sheet that we asked Power Query to import from each file. And then it created an automatic step here, promoted headers. So what it did was the first row, it promoted the values here to column headers. So we see Ontario here is a value in one cell. And then here it went to be the name of that column. So the header for that column. We don't want that. So we can come here, just simply delete this step. One of the beautiful things about Power Query is that we can delete steps, and these won't do anything to our data. We are not touching our data. Our data is in the file exactly the way it was. We are working with the visualization of that data. So you can try whatever you want in Power Query. It won't affect your data. The worst thing that can happen to you is that you may need to start your query from scratch again, but there's no danger of messing your data like there is, for example, when we are working with VBA. Okay, so I deleted that step, and now I have one row with just one value in this cell and nothing across the other columns. The first thing I'm going to do is to make sure the Ontario word shows up in all the rows up to here, down to here, and then Alberta repeats for all the other rows. One thing we need to understand with Power Query is that in general, all our actions are applied to entire columns, not to specific cells as we do with formulas in Excel. So I'm going to say to this column, come to the Transform tab here at the top, And in this transform tab, there's this tool fill, and inside fill, I have fill down. I'm going to click that and watch what happens to those null cells. You see what happened? It filled down every time there was a value. It repeated that value until it found another cell with a new value. So that's good because now I know for all the rows which location they belong to. Now I get to the first row, I don't really need that anymore. And I know that I have this empty row in all the files. So I can come to here and say in the home tab, remove rows, remove top rows. And it comes up with this dialog box and say remove the first row and OK. Okay, good. So now we don't have that empty row at the top anymore. Now I wanted to have E1, E2, E3 as the name of these columns because they represent, these columns contain the quantities sold for each one of these products. So now it's a good time to do that step that we had before, which is use first row as headers. It's in here in our first in our home tab. Okay, doing that, now whatever was in the first row went to be the values, the names of the columns. There's a few changes we need to do here. First, we don't Ontario would not be the name of this column or the header. This would be, for example, the location. And we can just double click in the cell and change the text and press enter. This column would be the sales rep, for example. Okay. This column here is the name of the product, name of the product, name of the product. So that's fine. We need that information. And so for columns, we are good for now. There's other things here. First is that the headers repeat here at the bottom. I don't want that. And I can see that this happens in a row that has a null value in column sales rep. And there are other rows with the same values, null value in the sales rep column. And for these rows, everything is null. I don't want them. So I can just say, come to this column and get rid of everything that says null, because I don't need those rows. That is very simple. We just come to the filter button, click the null and check the null value there, say OK. And now look at this. We have our data is getting shape, is looking much cleaner. Pay attention to what we see here. This is the function that Power Query uses to select certain rows, table.select rows. And in here, it's the first thing is always the name of the previous step. So the step names are in here on the side, on the right, renamed columns, that's the name of the previous step. And what the formula is saying, go to the previous step, named, renamed columns. And for each row where in column sales rep, we have a value that is different from null, select those rows. So that's what's happening here. Like I said, this is the M language. You don't need to understand this all at once in the first time you use Power Query, but take your time every now and then to take a look at that and start to getting acquainted with what's happening there. Plus, another very important tip is that every time we do a filter, Power Query tries to guess what kind of filter we are doing. And so it's every time you do a filter, it's very important that you check the formula bar to see if this makes sense. In this time, it does. That this time it did a good job. It did the correct work we needed. It's filtering everything in the sales rep column that is different than null. That's exactly what we needed. Okay. So everything is looking good. Now, this is not in tabular layout. What do you mean it's not in tabular layout, you may ask? Because I see a table, you may say. I see a table, different columns. Well, one way of knowing if our data is pivoted and needs to be unpivoted is doing something like this. Go through the columns and start asking, is this, let me do escape because maybe I was in the formula bar. Okay. Is this value Ontario a location? Yes, it's a location. So this column is good. Is this value a sales rep? Is John a sales rep? Yes, John is a sales rep. So this column is good. Is 150 E001? That doesn't make any sense, that question, right? We know that 150 is the quantity sold. We know because we know, just because we know, because it does not really say on our column. And the name in the column is in fact a product code. So this tells us that something is pivoted here. We need an information that says, we need to have a column that says quantity, and we need to have a column that says the product code. And since in this case we have 3 products, we will have to repeat the rows for location Ontario sales rep John 3 times. So we need to have Ontario John, product E001, quantity 150. And then again, Ontario John, product E002, quantity 80. And same thing for the E003, okay? If we had to do that manually, that was very annoying and time consuming and all that we already spoke about, but not with Power Query. So in Power Query, we have in the transform tab, we have buttons here. Where is it? Pivot column, okay? And we have other, let's see, oh here, and pivot columns. And on pivot columns, we have, let me maybe put this bigger. We have a pivot column, and pivot other columns, and selected columns. The choice to make depends on each situation, but what we need to see here is that we could either select these 3 columns with products and say, and pivot these columns, or we can select these 2 and say, these are good, so unpivot the other ones. In this situation, to have this menu, by the way, I just clicked right click with the mouse. And in this situation, I prefer to use unpivot other columns. The reason is that I could, in the future, have more columns with more products. So if I choose the specific columns E1, E2, E3, and say unpivot this, the next time when I repeat the code that I have in Power Query will do just that. Power Query will unpivot only columns for E1, E2, and E3. And if there are other products, Power Query will ignore those columns. It won't unpivot them. So that's not what we want. We want to say, Power Query, pay attention. We want you to look at location and sales rep and any other columns that you find, and pivot all them. So them all. So come here and pivot other columns. Okay, so here we say select location and sales rep and pivot all the other columns. And that's what we did. You see now we have Ontario, for Ontario John, we have 3 rows, 1 for each product, and the quantities. The names that were created here were created automatically by Power Query. We can see them here in the formula. We could change them there, or if we don't feel so comfortable, we can just double click and say this is the product code, and here double click, this is the quantity sold. Enter. By doing this way, we created a new step here, renamed columns. If we had done that directly in the formula bar, we would have saved us this one step, but that's fine. So that's it. We have all our data now the way we need it. This was the work done, again, with just one sample file. We are working in this query transform sample file. See? Now, if we go back to our main query, that the one that we originated from our Excel file, we can see that everything is combined together. So we have Alberta and Ontario for February down here. If we scroll up, we see Ontario and Alberta, the two locations for January. Okay, so this is looking good. What else we need to do to have our data? Well, I need the dates. I need to know when each quantity sold, when each sale happened. In this case, I'm going to take advantage of the file names. So this first column that in fact brings me the file names, I can use them as information about the sales. So in this case, if you were to do that, it's very important that the files come named correctly. But we have the extension of the file here, excuse me, that we don't really need. So to do that, we can use come to transform, not add column. So if we come to add column, I can see that I have extract text before delimiter, which will be the exact tool that I will be using. But if I do that from the add column, as the name says, I will be adding a new column to my data, and then I would have to delete this one. Since I don't need this column, I can just work directly on that column, on this column, and transform it instead of creating a new column. So for that, I come to transform, and here I'm going to say format, and not format, sorry, extract, and text before delimiter. And I see that the information I want is before the dot. So I can say my delimiter is a dot, okay, and say okay. And look at that, everything that we don't need it is gone. We don't need is gone. So zoom out a little bit. This is how our data is looking now. We are almost done for this first step of the example. We can rename this column and say that this is a date, okay, or maybe this is a month, better said. And if we want to work with this in Excel as a date, then we should convert this column that currently says ABC there, meaning that it's considering the information in this column as text. And if we try to do calculations and sort, for example, dates in Excel, and we have these in text, they may not work. In fact, this format would work because it's sorted by year and month. It would work for sorting, but if I want to do more advanced analysis, like adding 2 months to a certain date and find the data for that, then I need to have this in data format, date format, I mean. And I also should indicate the type of data that I have in all the columns. When we have ABC 1, 2, 3, it's kind of equivalent of having the general date number format, the general number format in or data format or data type in Excel, meaning it's not really defined, and Excel and Power Query, they get to choose what's best, but we should not do that. Get to choose what's the best guess, but we should not leave that at that chance. So we should define our data types for each column. So the next transformation is to do that. I can select one column and press Ctrl A to select all the columns. And in here, I have a button in the Home tab that says Detect Data Type. By doing that, Power Query guesses the data type for each column automatically, and then we should always review and see if the guessing is correct. So it transformed this to a date. Look at that. It already recognized that that information was a date. But to assign a date to each row, it decided to use day 1 of each month. So we will get to that in a minute. Then location says it's text, sales rep is text, product code is text, quantity, it is a whole number. In this case, that's good enough. So everything is good. Let's leave it at that. If you wanted to change anything, For example, if I wanted to have quantities and say that these quantities could be the decimal number, I can click in this button and have all these other options here. So I could choose decimal number there. Okay, I'm going to do escape. Regarding the date here, we can say, well, since these are sales, it's best to have the date of at the end of the month instead of the first of the month. So we can select the column and come to transform. And since this is a date column, a column with dates, we have this button here. Others are grayed out, meaning that we cannot use them all. Not all the functions are available, but for dates, we have a number of options here. Within dates, we have month, and within month, we have end of the month. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So it used this function date dot end of the month. That's what's happening there, but we don't need to worry about that. We just need to see that it now transformed each value to the corresponding end of the date, end of the month date. Even recognize that February into 2020 was a leap year, so end of the date was February 29th, and so forth. Okay, so now moment of truth. First moment of truth. This is not over yet. In fact, I think I'll go quite over the time. Let's close and load. Close and load to. And in here, I get to choose where I want to load my data to. By default, Power Query suggests a table in a new worksheet. I'll say OK so that you see what happens when you use the default. And that's our table there, our table with all the information. Okay. Rupam, we are reaching the hour, and I would have maybe 15 or 20 more minutes of content. Do you prefer me to
Yeah.
end here, or are you okay with me continuing for a longer time?
Yeah, please continue. We
Okay.
are enjoying. Yeah.
Are there any questions so far from the public or any comments?
No, not yet.
Okay, so please feel
They,
free to
they are
type.
concentrating.
Oh, good. But they can type in the chat if they want to ask questions. Feel free to do so. Okay, and we will try to address them. Okay, so look at that. We have those awkward files in that folder. We created this and these steps. We did these once, and now we can test it. You want to see? If we come to, we know that our folder only has 2 files. If I go here, I have extra files. I'm going to copy this file for March. Not here, sorry, here. I'm going to put the file there. Okay. All we have to do the next month, we did all this hard work. Just come to the data tab and click this button that says refresh. Now we have January, February, and March. All the data combined together. We even have a new location in the March file. Everything is here well prepared for us. Let me maybe put this bigger. Everything is in there. That's just amazing. So let's click save. Now, if I want to know about my sales, and the report doesn't give me the price, it only provides the quantity sold, that's not really good enough. So what we could do if we were just working in Excel would probably be, oh, okay, so I have the prices here. Now I can come here, create a new column, and put in a VLOOKUP or an XLOOKUP formula and find the price for each product using the product ID. We could do that. But Power Query can do better for us, can do that for us as well. So we can, in fact, load this information to Power Query and then combine this information with information we got from this query. So what we are going to do now is to load this table to Power Query. To do that, I just click anywhere in the table, come to the data, ribbon there, and we have from table range there. We have that button. Click that, and the Power Query editor opens up, and it's already preparing the table for us. It went, so the source step is where it says go to the current workbook and look for a table named table 1 and bring me the content. In fact, so because the table is table 1, the name of the query shows as table 1 here. I could change the name of the query here to products, but I like things tidy, and so I'm going to discard, close and discard, and start this again. What I'm going to do first is in this table, come to table design. This is an Excel table. If you are not using Excel tables, this is your homework for tonight or for your weekend. You will go to my YouTube channel and you will look through the live classes there. There's one class that says, I can't remember the exact title, but it's something like Excel tables, one of the most important features in Excel. You need to know about Excel tables. So I do encourage you to watch that class, okay? When we have data in tables, everything becomes easier, including importing that data into Power Query. So when we have a table, we get this extra tab here that says Table Design. And in here, we get the name of the table. I'm going to rename this table to Products. So that's the name of this table now. Okay, if I have a new product, I will add it here and it will be included in that table. Okay, well, not this. I wanted to do Control 4 to zoom out. Okay, so let's start again. Remember, we want to import this data into Power Query so that then I can combine this information with the information from the other query, the other report. Okay. So select anywhere in the prices table, come to table design, and then, come to the data tab and click the button from table range. And we get the table imported here. Power Query, now you see the name of the query is the same name as the table, and it's nicer like that. It's nice to have the query names the same as the table names. It helps us later with our work. It went ahead and created a change type step for us. Let's see if it guessed it right. So product ID is text, description is text, and price is whole number. Maybe we want to change these to either decimal number or currency. Currency, in fact, is a decimal number type of data, special one that rounds to 4 decimal places. Okay, so let's use the currency just in case we have other decimal prices later in the future. And it's asking me if I want to replace the current step or create a new step. No, I want to replace the current step. So because Power Query didn't guess the way I wanted, so now I see that the sign is the sign for currency data type. Although we see 2 decimal places here, we will see that it does not load that formatting to Excel, but that's fine. In fact, we are not going to load it. Oh goodness, I keep pressing the wrong key. So we are not going to load this into Excel because we already have this information in our spreadsheet. Remember, we already have the prices there. So now that it's time to load, close and load to, I'm not going to do the same thing as I did before. Before I said load to a table in a new worksheet, now I'm going to say only create a connection because I already have this data on my Excel spreadsheet. I don't need to load it again to that file. So just say okay. So now you see here on the side, we have a sales report query and we have a products report query. When we hover our mouse on top of that, it gives us this card with some information about the query, a preview of what's generating, but we don't really need to pay attention to that now. Okay, so now we have two queries, and remember that we wanted to combine the information from both queries. The first one is loading the data from the reports, and now I need to add, I want to add two columns, one with the unit price for each product code, and then another one with the total sales amount. Okay, I could continue and integrate the information from this query into that one, but I prefer to create a new query. So we go to not file, we go to get data, so data tab, get data, and then here combine queries and then merge. Okay, that's the option we are going to use. And now we will get to choose what is it that we want to merge. Well, I have one report that is a sales report. Okay, that's the first one, also called the left table. The second one, or the right table, will be the products query. So the table that I resulted from the second query. Now I get to choose what type of join I want. There's also a lesson in my YouTube channel that explains all the different join kinds. For this case, we want the one that shows as default choice, which is the left outer, meaning it says here, get me everything from the first column, first table. So I want everything in the first table matching from the second. And so for each one, find a match. But how does the match happen? We need to choose to tell Power Query which columns will do the match in between the two tables. And the matching needs to be done by the product, the information we want to look up in the second table. So it's the product code column gives us the values we want to look into the second column, the second table, and in the second table, that information is in the product ID column. So I select these two columns to tell Power Query which columns are connecting the two tables to perform this merge. They don't need to have the same name. You see here it says product code, here it says product ID. They don't need to have the same name. It's not mandatory. Okay, so now I click OK. We wait a little bit, and there we go. Now we have the same table as we had before, and with one extra column there that says products, and inside each cell, I'm not going to click in the word, I'm going to click in the cell, but outside the word. When we do that, we see a preview here, and what's doing is finding all the rows in the products table that correspond to product E001. So we can see, and here to E002, we can see the information that it found for us in the second table. But this is not the way we want to have information. We want to come here and expand from this table, from each one of these tables. I don't need the product ID because I already have it here in this product code column. I really don't need a description either for this purpose. I just need the price. And I'm going to uncheck this thing here because otherwise it will create a complicated column name. We don't need that. So let's just do OK. It already guessed its currency, so that's fine, because it did that because we had defined that in the other table. And now finally, we want a new column that multiplies these two columns. We can do that different ways. One of them is selecting those two columns and then come to add columns, so not transform, because if I do transform, it will transform the two tables into just one, sorry, it will transform the two columns into just one column. I don't want that. I want to keep the two quantity and price columns, the two columns, keep them and add a new column. So I need to come to add column. And in here, I will say, I could create a custom column. I could use this one, but I'm going to use the standard and say multiply. And it created a column that is the multiplication of these two other items. So for example, 150 times 100, 15,000, that's correct. The name for the column was automatically generated as multiplication. So we can come here and rename the column as we did before. It will generate a new step that will be renamed columns. This time we are going to be very audacious, and we are going to come here to the formula bar and say, okay, this is telling, this code here is saying add a column to the table in the expanded products step. Okay. Multiplication, this looks like the name of the new column that it created. And then this is the formula to create the values in that column. For each row, multiply the value in quantity times the value in price column. And then the final argument here, parameter, is to say what the data type will be for the new column. So anyways, we want to change the name of the column, and I don't want to keep creating extra steps that I don't need. So instead of double clicking the column header to create a new name, I'm going to come here and say, don't call the column multiplication, call it amount. That's what I want the name to be for this new column. You see, now we have the column named the way we want. Okay, so now let's go close and load to, and table into a new worksheet. Okay, let's do that. Oh, I forgot to rename this query. It gave the name merge, so I can double click and come here and change the name there, or in fact I can come here and right click and do rename. This would be the final report, okay. I'm going to put a space, although it's many times it's convenient not to use spaces. And now my sheet was named merge one, so I can change the name here because that was the name of the query. So I can say final report here. And now we don't really need this first one. The first one that didn't have the last columns, I don't need it. So I can just right click and delete this sheet, say yes. And what that will do to the previous query is that now if you check it here, the sales reports query became a connection only, as the products query is. So it's connecting to the folder, bringing the information, but it's not displaying that information in our spreadsheet. And what else? But now we have the final report sheet with the data that we need. We have the month with the dates, the location, sales representative name, product codes, quantity, price, amount, etc., etc. Okay, so let's test this. Let me save. What if I bring a new sales reports all? What if I bring a new, oh, not here, here, file, a new month. Let's see what's in there. So we have 3 locations, okay, and still 3 products. Let's imagine that Ontario now has one new product. Let's say E004, and these people all sold 10 of that product. Let's see what happens. And in fact, I'm seeing, I just realized that now. I'm going to, because I didn't prepare this, I just thought of this now. We are going to refresh, and this is going to update our data correctly because this product is in this first row that will then become the column header. If I had done this below here or here, I would not get the name of the product correctly. So we would have to do some extra work in our queries. But let's save this. This should work now. So let's right click and refresh, or go to data and refresh all. Of course, we don't have the price information yet, so we will have to take care of that too. So if I do refresh all, and then scroll down, I see there's the product E004 coming through here, but we don't have the price or the amount because that information is not available in our prices table. So in a real situation, if we have a very long lists of products, one other query that I would have to create is, first, let me compare the products coming through the sales reports and the products that I have on my table, and show me any new products that I don't have available. Because if I only come here, if I have a very long list of data, I might not notice that I have holes here. So we can create other queries to give us the information about the list comparison and how I can find those numbers, values that are in one query and not the other one. Again, in that class about joint kinds, I have examples about how to do that. So what we would have to do now is to come here and create a new code for this product and create a name, just test, and create a name and a value there, $20. And now if I come here and do right click refresh, or click the refresh all button there, now we should see the product 004, E004. It's coming with the information that we just entered. So this is how easy it is to get data updated after we do all the first work, all the work that needs to be done first, but it only needs to be done once. Okay, so, and now of course, okay, so now how do I get the report? How do I get the report by sales rep and date and all that? Now that you have your data in tabular layout, you can come to data, to insert, not data, to insert pivot table in a new worksheet. Okay, sounds good. And now you can build your pivot tables as you usually do. For example, we can put months, and we can put maybe sales location. I just need the month here. I can maybe put, so under each location, the sales representative name, and then maybe I can put the product codes. In fact, I'm going to put the months across in the columns and have the product codes there. And something is not working well, maybe because, oh, I know what is, I may have forgotten to set the data types. Let's see. That's a very important step. Let's see if that's what's happening here. Yeah, you see here how important it is. I forgot to set the, although data types are set there, we don't have any data types. So why is this not working? Dates, text, everything is correct. Quantities, whole number, price is a whole number, and amount is decimal. Price and amount are decimals. In currency, so everything is fine. Not sure what is missing. Rupam, are you detecting
You
something?
did, yeah. I guess you didn't put the value or the amount
Oh, yeah,
in the
that's
value
right.
section.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's what happened. Thank you. So let's go there. Here, I forgot to bring the amounts into the values. That's correct. Okay, so there we go. We have the amounts, not the months, amount here. So now we have, and now we could set this as currency, then set the number formats properly, and now we have everything showing here. We could remove the grand totals if you wanted to. So that's it. Next time you can just come and refresh all. When you do refresh all, you will refresh both the queries and the pivot table. When you come here to data, you do both. So let's do a final test. Let me copy this file and pretend this is let's pretend this is May file. May file. And let's refresh. There's one important tip here. If I do refresh all, you will see that the pivot table won't refresh at the same time. So let's do refresh all. And if we go to our final report, we can see that May is coming through correctly there. But our pivot table, where is it? Let me delete this sheet because I can keep coming here. Does not get May. And I need to do refresh all again. And now I have May. There's another video there in my YouTube channel about enable background refresh property. For you to have the pivot table to refresh with just one click together with your reports, with your query here, we need to come to the properties and come here and say enable background refresh, disable that. And I'm not going to explain why today, but again, there's a video there explaining details about this. So doing this the next time, if I now had another month, I can do a quick testing there. Let's just create a copy and pretend this is June's file. If we do that, and now I do refresh all, here we get June included, and in here we also got June column added. Okay, so that was my demo for today. This is the example. In this example, you saw many different things in Power Query that you can use. You saw pivoting data, connecting to a folder. If you want to put up my picture now, Rupam, if you don't mind, on the side of the spreadsheet, I like to look in the camera and talk to people now that they don't need to see. So the other one, that's it. Good, thank you. So I was saying you saw an example here that combines many different things in Power Query. You saw how to connect to a folder, how to connect to a table, how to combine information of the two connections together into just one table, how to load your data in different ways to your sheet. It can be loaded as a table, as a connection only. In fact, that pivot table, we could also load directly as a pivot table. We saw the thing with the data types that we need to be careful. We saw how to use the transform sample file query here to teach Power Query what it needs to do with just one file in the folder. And then it repeats the same procedure to all the files. So we saw how to multiply columns or create custom columns. We saw several things, and this is just one tip of the iceberg. But as you can see, it's not difficult to learn. You can test, you can start looking through your editor and try different things. What we do here does not affect your data, so feel free to try and to learn. I'm going to put up my presentation up. So let's present here. So this was our example. Why Power Query saves time? Because we can create the connection once, we can then create the transformation steps once, and then we get to refresh and update the reports forever with just one click. Some learning resources. I'm going to send this file, this presentation to Rupam, and then he will send to people registered this PDF, this presentation in PDF format. Each one of these buttons here have links to Microsoft pages where you can find information about Power Query. Here, there are more links available here. That you can explore, including if you use Excel for Mac, Power Query is not as developed as I showed you today, but it's getting improved. Even recently, new features were added to Power Query for Excel. I have, from here, you can subscribe in my page if you are interested in learning resources that I recommend to learn Excel. And this second link is a link to a masterclass that I gave to during an event in April in London. It happened online. It's a paid masterclass, but it's available for half of the price it was available back then. And you can buy the recording. It's 7 hours of lessons with Power Query, and you also get the files. Here is my channel, YouTube channel. There's the link there. This is the playlist with the live classes that I recommend you to take a look if you are interested in learning different things in Excel and Power Query in particular. This is the link for the Excel meetup group. It has almost 2,000 members. Feel free to join. Next session will be in the 16th of this month, and it will be, it's not the one showing here, it will be about Power Query and Excel online. So it will be very interesting with an MVP, Michael Olafuzzi. And this is my contact information. Feel free to take a picture if interested in connecting with me in any of the social media platforms. There's the newsletter that you can subscribe as well. I send one every month with news about what's new in Excel and the things that I've been doing and presenting, the content that I've been creating. This is my next presentation. It will be this next weekend. Excel Weekend 7 is an event that used to happen in Brazil in person. It was a paid event. This year, because of the times we are living, it will be totally free and online. So feel free to join to register. There's the link there, excelweekend.com. I will be presenting about Power Query and M language there. And just addressing the questions that you sent me, some of you sent before the session. How can I become an Excel expert in Excel and gradually progress and become an expert? So my advice is to practice with real examples as much as possible. Take all the opportunities you can at home or at your job to use Excel. Solve problems with Excel. A good way to find real world problems is in the forums. Microsoft Tech Community and Microsoft Mr.Excel.com are two good examples of those portals. People put questions there, post questions, and then you can take those questions and try to help. Or even if you don't want to post your answer, if you are not sure if this is correct, you can grab those questions and try to solve the problem for yourself. Watch video tutorials on YouTube. Find channels that you think are good for, they have good content. If you go into my learnings resources page, you get one list of a few channels that I think are good. And of course, take courses, because I learned and still learn a lot just watching content published online, but the content sometimes it's just one tip or just one formula or just something that is not properly connected to the whole picture. Taking structured courses helps us connecting the dots between the different things that we learn. Another question was, will DAX or other BI software replace Excel in near future? Well, DAX is a language that exists in Excel and Power BI. That's what allows us to create the measures. When we drag things into a pivot table, it's using something similar to DAX. And we can use DAX to create the measures we want to have in our pivot tables. So Power BI and Excel both use DAX, and they are different tools. Some things overlap. When it comes to reporting, you can do in both tools, Excel and Power BI. Power BI is better prepared to publish reports online, to create different visuals and to have interactivity in your reports, but you can do also very good reports in Excel. So, and there are other things that Excel does that Power BI does not do. So Power BI is all about reporting, and you do much more than that in Excel. Power BI, it's about visualization of your reports. So none of the tools replaces the other. About web scraping, you can use get data from web, one of the connectors in Power Query, to get information, to get data from an internet website. It can be easier or more challenging depending on how the web page is structured. If the data is not available in tabular layout, then you will have a lot of you will need extra work. And also, if you need authentication to access that data, then you may need to work with APIs and things like that are not, it's an extra skill you need to have. This link here is for a video there in one of my classes where I demonstrated one example of importing data from one website, one web page. Another question, how does it help in automation while sharing files across devices? Yes, so remember when we connected to the folder, the path to the folder shows hard-coded in our Power Query code. So if you are using the same, wanting to update your report, sometimes in one computer and other times in another computer, the path to that folder can be different, and that will create problems when you create a query in one computer and try to update it in the other computer. It won't work. But there are tricks to go around that. In this link here, you will see a demonstration in one of the presentations I did for another meetup group. I explain my trick to go around that. You create one cell in Excel that teaches Excel to know what's the path to that file in that computer. And then we create a way, we use a little bit of M code to import that information into Power Query, so that instead of having the path there hard-coded, you can read that information from your file. It's not difficult, it's quite easy. If you need to help with this, watch this link, the video in this link. It starts in the middle of the presentation, in the moment where I start to explain that trick, okay? Someone asked me about Power BI dashboard licensing to consume and spare licensing to be left in the bomb. I don't even know this. I don't work with Power BI yet. So any Power BI questions, I'm sorry, I am not the best person to answer. How can I learn shortcuts in Excel? I think it's the last question here. First thing is Google. Second thing, you can teach it yourself. So for example, let's imagine I keep filtering my data here, and then I need to clear filters, and I need to come to data, clear. Okay, or I need to come to here and clear the filters in the columns. And I'm tired of that, and I want a shortcut for that. Okay, so how do I learn? What's the shortcut to clear filters? First, let's put a filter here. In fact, let's put a filter in the products too. So I have two filters applied, and now I want to clear all the filters. I look for the feature in the ribbon. It's in the data, and then the button is in here, right? So what I do if I need to learn this shortcut is to go to Alt, and then first find the letter for the data tab. It's letter A, so A. And now find the letter to the button I want. It's C, Alt AC. Okay, so let's try again. Let's put a filter here, this location, and the product code, this one, for example. Now I want to clear the filter. Alt AC. You see, you found the shortcut. So I don't know a lot of shortcuts. I just know the ones I need, and sometimes I learn new shortcuts when I'm in the middle of a project that I need to learn something, to repeat the same thing over and over. I learn that shortcut there, and then sometimes I just forget about it again. So that's it. I hope I addressed all the questions.
Yeah, we have one more question from Rahim.
Sure.
So he asked whether Power Query for Excel web is available or not.
Power Query for Excel web is available. It's not that I know. It's not available. I think that if you open the file in Power Query online, you might have some refreshing tools available. I would have to test, but you cannot create the query exclusively there in Excel Online. So to create your queries with Power Query, you definitely need to do that in Excel for desktop. And then about refreshing, I would have to see. I think something is already available in Excel Online, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay. We'll get back, obviously, to the participants via the live link. I will post once you get back with the answer. And I hope the session is at end. And this was really, really amazing. I myself learned some tips, some pro tips that you have given. That is quite awesome. And yes, guys, this is the way you can save lots of hours by using Power Query. And Excel will take all the hassles once you set your standard with Power Query to prepare a report. That's what Celia showed to us. So thank you very much. It was really awesome. And I will definitely pass on the resources that we have covered today through Celia to the registered participant who registered to the Google Forms. So you will get all of them in your email. And I won't linger. It's already 11:39 p.m. in Bangladesh. Yeah. And
so thank you,
I
everyone,
found
for... Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say thank you
No.
for staying up later. I could have brought a shorter example, but the purpose of this session was to really show the power of Power Query. So I thought I would create an example that would combine at least different situations so that people can become aware of what they can do. And just one last thing, that's another question that comes a lot, is does Power Query replace VBA? And the answer is yes and no. Power Query replaces VBA for all the tasks that are about importing data. So before, when we wanted to go to the folder and bring the data from those files, we would have to use VBA for that. And that now you do it with Power Query is so much easier to do, to build, to maintain, to update. But anything else that you could use VBA for example, to create your Excel reports in PDF at the end, to send emails, to, I don't know, other things that you can do with VBA, Power Query does not do it. So anything that is about importing data, yes, Power Query replaces VBA in those tasks. Sorry
Yes.
to interrupt.
Even no, that's completely okay. Thank you for your explanation. And I do think from my side, using the M code is a lot easier compared to the VBA code.
Yeah, it's
Because
two
you can,
different languages. Both are relatively easy to learn. The good thing about M code compared to VBA is that, again, VBA can do damages if you don't take care of creating your backup before you start playing with VBA and testing your code. If you go and overwrite things in your files, then you may not be able to recover them. One good thing to do is to have them saved in the cloud, because then you can go back and recover previous versions. Otherwise, it's a damage that you can do with VBA, and Power Query does not have that. So but the language is not difficult. And if you are interested in learning a little bit of M code, feel free to check that presentation I'm going to do this event this weekend in Excel weekend event. I'll be teaching tips about the M language. So feel free to join.
Yeah, this is, guys, a very good thing. I have also registered for this training session for M code. So I encourage you guys to register for the same, so that you can learn a little bit of coding, easy coding, I should say. I will post it in my page as well. So we have some different trainings coming up in my page as well. So I have invited some of the trainers from the global arena. So feel free to follow my page, and also solve an Excel page, because these two pages post the upcoming trainings in the global arena. So you can keep yourself updated with the newest resources and also newest training information, so that you can update yourself and upgrade yourself as well. So
Definitely.
Thank you very much. I won't linger much.
Sure.
It was an amazing session, and it was a blasting opening for Bit of Excel event for sure. And please take my gratitude for taking this session. It was quite insightful, and I think people will in Bangladesh and in other parts of the world will find a lot of interest learning Power Query from now on.
Hopefully. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be your first guest, a privilege, and I wish you all the success to your show, to your program, Bit of Excel.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.